All right, so what are SiriusXM Marine Weather's value points? So SiriusXM Marine Weather is up-to-date graphical weather information that is viewed directly on your chart plotter, on your multifunction display. This is not weather that comes on a tablet or on a phone or other means. This is right where you're viewing your navigation charts, comfortably located right in front of you while you're at the helm. We have complete coverage, so this is satellite-based service. This is not limited to the range of cellular networks. So in my particular case, Dan and I are located in the Chesapeake, and I can tell you where my boat is, right at the dock. I literally have 1.5 bars to 2 bars of cell signal. I cannot animate weather on my cell phone at all. So this is satellite-based. Now, I know there's a lot of people on this call, too, who like to go offshore. And as most of you will notice, that when you get somewhere around 4 to 6 miles off, depending on how close you are to a cell tower, you typically start losing cell service. So cell service does not matter here. This is completely satellite-based. And we will talk about the coverage area and some other features of that satellite service coming up soon. And then last but not least, I'd be remiss if I did not mention seasonal suspend. Valuable thing to know for folks, and probably SiriusXM, we probably have not done the best job explaining this. Seasonal suspend, for those of you who live in the northern latitudes with cold winters and you're putting your boat up on the hard, or if you're getting work done on your boat and your boat is out of the water, or frankly, if you're just not using your boat, there's no sense in paying for your service. So we encourage people to seasonally suspend, and you just simply call in and you suspend your service, and then you pick the date that you want a signal sent to your weather receiver to wake it back up. You can do this for up to 6 months at a time. So the longest period you can extend this for is 6 months, which for all intents and purposes, for the vast majority of us using this service, that'll cover you. All right, next slide. Thank you, Dan. All right, so we're going to walk you through screenshot to screenshot of how to find and how to use SiriusXM Weather. So from your Garmin home screen, and this, by the way, is over a GPSMAP plotter, you find SiriusXM Weather under Charts. Now, this screenshot may look a little different for people that have an older version of a Garmin plotter or older version of software, but for all intents and purposes, this, should the tabs here should look very much identical to what you see on yours. So we're going to start by going to Charts first, and then we're going to click on Precipitation. And from that, we're going to go into some of the precipitation features. So first and foremost, and probably the most commonly used and well understood, is weather radar and lightning. Pretty straightforward. This shows you storm cells, pretty similar to what you see on TV or what you can see on your cell phone. But this shows you storm cells directly on your chart plotter. And Dan, if you'll just point out take the icon and put it on the boat there. We put the boat in this particular location to make a point, and that is, in particular, in summertime, or in particular, if you're a Floridian, oftentimes little storm cells pop up. So if you take your plotter on SiriusXM Weather and you kind of dial it out, zoom out, if you will, and look at the bigger storm system, see what's going on. You can see the individual storm cells, and then we suggest that you zoom in, and that way you have the potential, if you're lucky enough, to skirt individual storm cells, or at least the ones that are of lesser severity. So in this particular screenshot, you're seeing a boat that is, has the potential of skirting between those two cells. You're also seeing some lightning strikes, which you can see in proximity to your boat. Dan, what did I miss here? Animation, you want to talk about that?
All the Garmin plotters have what they call a loop feature. Whatever screen that you're looking at, if you're looking at a weather screen and you press the menu button, it brings up a little menu on the side, and you can select to turn the loop on or off. With it on, it plays basically a 20-minute history of what that storm has been doing. So you can watch those cells if they're coming directly towards you, or maybe they're going to split off to the north or south of you, and basically just help you stay out of the worst part of that storm.
All right, thank you, Dan. And John, anything to add here, John?
No, you guys covered it. So anytime you want to go in and customize layers or anything like that, select menu, and then that allows you to really dig down deep inside the menus to turn different layers on and off. It's probably the best thing to remember.
Great. Thanks, John. And just as a reminder for everybody on this call, if you do have questions, remember to chat us by clicking on everyone and then chat your question in. We're going to go through a handful more feature slides, and then we'll take your questions.
So next we're going to talk a little bit about the forecast mode. Going back to the home screen on your Garmin, there are basically 4 weather function keys that come up when you have an active subscription. Precipitation was the one we just discussed. So now we're going to go on, we're going to click on forecast. When you do that, and again, these screens, as John mentioned, they're customizable. So what we've done here is we've sort of broken them into segments, and we're giving you just pieces of the different layers that you could have. So what I'm showing here is what we typically use or how we typically set up the forecast page. So the forecast is for looking at big weather information, like you want to see what storm is coming towards you and what the barometric pressure is doing. So with those layers turned on, what we're seeing here is isobars giving us the barometric pressure. And in addition to the isobars, we're also seeing a trough of a front that's coming through. And over here, what we see is the word now. So what we're looking at is current conditions. And with the Garmin, you have the ability to click on this little right-left arrow feature up here. Depending on what subscription you have, you can see information out as far as 48 hours. So in the next slide, we've tapped it and it goes in 12-hour increments. So we've run it all the way out to 48 hours. So you can see the trough has moved on, and the isobars have now changed. The barometric pressure has changed, so we're looking at a different cold front coming through now. So next, we're going to go over to the fishing information. We've gone back to our home screen, and we're going to select the fishing icon. And Jeff, you want to take this one? And I'll need to unmute you, or you'll need to unmute yourself.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at here is sea surface temperatures. So what you see in particular is a picture of a boat. For all of you out there that are fisherwomen, fishermen, this denotes a hot spot. So you can see that there's a pretty substantial change in temperature between the yellow colors, which are somewhere in the mid-80s, to the red color where the boat is, and that is a temperature break. And usually at temperature breaks, you will be more likely to find bait fish, and the pelagic fish species like to feed on those bait fish, which makes it a really good spot for fishing and potentially catching fish. If you'll look up in the left-hand corner of this screen, you'll also see a legend that shows you specifically where temperature is set, that range is set in this particular shot. The other thing you probably want to notice here for those folks that are, let's say, your trawlers or your cruisers, or you're doing a trip across to the Bahamas, regardless of what kind of boat you have, this also points out exactly where the Gulf Stream is. So this particular image was probably taken in the summertime. The break is not as substantial. But you can certainly see images, screenshots on your display where you can very clearly see the Gulf Stream. And of course, you'll know when you hit it because the water changes for everybody who's been out in the Gulf Stream. But this is just a good way of telling exactly where that Gulf Stream is. Anything I missed there, Dan or John?
No, let's go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, John, I'll let you talk a little bit about this. It's a unique feature that Garmin has.
Yeah, so with this feature, what we can actually do is drill down and get a lower limit and upper limit by a temperature range. So this allows us to enable that particular range if we're looking for specific sea surface temperature. So great for the fishermen looking for certain sea surface conditions. Then we also have an auto configure too. So with the auto configure, it might give you better resolution on the screen. So we give you a couple different ways that you can kind of customize that. I did notice one question in the chat, and it was talking about resolution on a 7600 series. Can we improve that? There is a limitation to the resolution on the 7600 series, but you will see increased resolution on our new 8600 series with those IPS high definition displays.
Okay, and just to elaborate a little bit on the setting the upper lower limit, you can see over here on this legend, it says 83 to 88. So what we're looking at, this temperature range, that means that's 88 degree water right there, and this would be 83 degree water over here. So if you're looking for a fish that likes 82 degree water, then you can see very clearly where that range is going to be. You're going to find him in the green, or if you've got a fish that likes 88 degree water, you know, those are your small areas. So again, that's the way you can adjust to your upper and lower limits, so you can set a specific range. And any temperature that would fall completely outside of that range, the color would just show up as gray. So if any water here, if we zoomed out and we found, say, some 50 degree water, it would be all grayed out. So next, we're going to talk about the sea condition feature. So we've gone back to the home screen, and we're selecting sea conditions. And that brings up this page here, which, as I said, all of these screens are customizable. This is what we've set up, what we consider to fall into the sea condition category. You may wind up wanting to see one of these conditions overlaid on your storm screen, for example. But what we have here is wind and wave specifically, and there are two symbols on screen. The first one is a black symbol, which is a wind barb. That symbol is going to show you the direction of the wind and the speed of the wind. And if you have your legend turned on over here, it's going to give you the speed identifier for you. Basically, there's a small tick mark that equals 5 knots. There's a longer tick mark that equals 10 knots. And that tick mark shows up right out at the end of the symbol. You've got a circle at one end, or a dot, and then the tick marks on the other end. So we have a 10 knot tick mark and then a 50 knot tick mark. If we saw this actual symbol as it appears over here in the legend on screen, that would be telling us the wind was 65 miles an hour because we add the 3 ticks together. And in this case, looking at this legend, if we saw it actually on screen the way you see it here, the wind would be coming from the north. Think of yourself as the circle pointing into the wind. So the wind would be in your face if you were standing here looking to the north. The wind would be coming from the north. In this example here, the wind is coming from the east. So the wind is running from east to west. These little barbs point into the wind. Over here, the wind has shifted just a little bit. It's out of the east-northeast. So those are wind barbs. The next symbol that we have on screen is a red arrow, and the red arrow is the wave direction. So we can see here the wind and the wave are pretty much both going the same direction right now. We mentioned the wind was out of the east-northeast, and the waves are running from east-northeast to west-southwest. The next piece of information that's currently displayed on the screen is the color of the water. The color of the water no longer represents sea surface temperature like it did in the last screen. Over here, the symbol, the legend we have turned on, it says wave instead of temperature. So now what it's telling us is this scale is giving us our wave height from blue to red, and the wave height is running from 0 to 36 feet. So at a glance, we can tell that the waves in this area are about 4-footers. Over here, they might be about 7-footers. With the Garmin, you can also click on screen. Anywhere you click on screen, it's actually going to bring up a small balloon to tell you the wave height at that location. The same feature works on the sea surface temperature page. When you have the sea surface temperature page up, when you click on it, it gives you a little balloon and tells you the temperature at that exact location. So basically, anywhere you put your cursor on screen, you'll be able to pull up that information. Because we're looking at a slide here, it's not functioning. Next piece of information we have here is this line that you see here. It tends to show up green on most screens. And along these lines you see, there is a number. Here it's the number 4. Over here it's the number 5. What that's telling us is our wave period. So here the waves are 5 seconds apart. Over here they are 4 seconds apart. And over here they are 6 seconds apart. So that's our wave period information. So that's a lot of information put onto one slide at a glance. John, did you want to chime in with anything else? And if you do, I'll need to unmute you. Here you go. You can say anything you like now.
Yeah, this is a good way to actually to do some planning. To look out into the future and take a look at some of the sea conditions, wave height, and wave conditions. So
right. I forgot that. The buttons are still up here on screen as we were looking at the forecast information before. You can click through those, and depending on what, if you have the offshore package, which is our ultimate subscription package, you can toggle out as much as 48 hours to see what the conditions are going to be like.
Dan, there's a question to that last slide, Dan, about the bar in between. Is barometric pressure, is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, that's like the bar. That layer was turned on like we had seen it in the forecast page. So we're looking at 30.3 millibars here and 30.2 over here. As I mentioned, the layers are customizable, so you can turn on as many layers as you want or as few layers as you want. So one of the next features that we have, and again, I think that you can put this layer up on any of the screens. If you may have noticed back on the fishing page, we had these showing up. But again, they are layers. You can turn them off and on, but it's really nice information. Basically, there are a lot of buoys out there in the waterways that have sensors on board that are reporting and sending the information back to NOAA. Well, that information is accessible to us as well, so we put it on the feed. So with a Garmin unit, you can turn this information on as a layer, and these buoy symbols will show up on screen. And when you see a symbol like this, you can click on it, and it's going to bring up the actual information being reported by the buoy. Now, the information won't always be the same. Not all buoys have all the sensors on board. So this one, for example, is giving us wind speed and direction. You might click on one, and it'll only give you water temperature. So it just depends on what sensor is on that buoy and whether or not they're active or not. And it will also tell you the time that sensor relayed that information to NOAA, so you can see how old it is. The sensors don't broadcast continuously to save energy. They're on a cycle, so you can click on any particular one and be able to see when it reported that information. And like buoys, there are also stations on land, typically refer to them as Sea-to-Man stations. Those also are reporting back to NOAA, and you can click on one of these symbols when you see it on your screen, and it's going to bring up the information coming up from there. These symbols are also customizable. Right now, on this one, it's set to show you the current conditions, partly cloudy, or you have a sunshine for a fully sunny and clouds only, or rain or what have you, a little symbol there. You can change that symbol to give different pieces of information. For instance, if you wanted to know the pressure at each of the weather stations at a glance, you could set the Garmin so the pressure showed up inside this little black circle instead of the sun cloud symbol. So there are many ways you can customize this screen. The best way to learn this is, I think, is trial and error. Go into the menu button, select your layers button from the menu, and then find your weather station button, and there'll be another drop down where you can make all these choices and turn them off and on one at a time and see what they all mean. That's really the best way you're going to get use out of this this option.
All right. So this next feature is called Marine Zone Forecast. And all of us as boaters at one time or another, hopefully not too frequently these days, have listened to that garbled VHF weather report on Marine Zone Forecast. Been there, done that myself. And I have to say, and maybe this is just me, but I have a very difficult time listening to that report. And it always feels like the area that I want to hear about gets missed. I get distracted or can't pay attention long enough, and I miss the marine zone that I'm concerned about. So this weather feature makes it really simple. If you look at all these little different zones that Dan can point out here with the cursor, those are zones divided by NOAA, and you can literally just click on one of those zones. In this particular case, you would go to Marine Bulletin, and then you would pull up Coastal Forecast at the top. Go to the Coastal Forecast tab, if you would, Dan, on the previous slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Up here?
So go to Marine Bulletin, then you go to Coastal Forecast, and when you click on Coastal Forecast, then it'll take you to the next slide that Dan just showed us. And let's see that again, Dan. Yeah. So this is the forecast. In this particular case, we have 4 pages of weather-related information for this specific marine zone. So Dan, just step back the previous slide, if you don't mind. And this is a really useful tool for planning. And just for the sake of example, let's look at the boat in Miami. Dan, if you take your cursor down to the boat, and you're planning a trip, and you're going around the Keys, and you're going, let's say, up to Pine Island or Sanibel or Naples or maybe even Sarasota. The weather could be different from one side of Florida to the next. Certainly the wind and waves could be substantially different. So super useful tool to click ahead to where you're going and see these marine zones in advance with a very detailed report. So a feature that I particularly like a lot and wanted to bring it to your attention. All right, next, Dan.
Okay, so now we'll got a couple questions here that we get asked quite frequently, so we thought we'd answer them in advance. And already I've seen this question asked in the chat about how often does the data update. So the answer to that is different pieces of weather update at different rates. Our storm, radar, and lightning information is without a doubt the most crucial for you to have right away. That information we're able to update every 2 to 5 minutes. So that's about how old it is, although you do have to add a little bit. There's a little bit of processing time required from the time that the NOAA NextRad radar actually picks up the image, and by the time we're able to send it to you. So it's a few minutes older than that, but not by much. And then next we have wind and wave information. So that information, the current conditions, we update every 20 minutes. So you're getting information about what wind and wave is doing. However, the forecasted information, for instance, the 12-hour forecast and the 48-hour forecast, we only update those pieces of wind and wave information every hour. So the different weather elements are staggered in order to provide you with the best combination of updates as soon as possible. Now, sea surface temperature is one where there is a little bit of confusion because the satellite that actually gathers sea surface temperature information only makes a pass every 6 hours. So that information can only be updated every 6 hours. However, if that information gets updated, say, at 6 in the morning, and you turn on your chart plotter at 9, well, we don't want you to have to wait until noon for the next satellite pass. So basically, we retransmit whatever the most current data we have is every 60 minutes. So if you turn your chart plotter on, then the possibility exists that you might end up waiting as long as 59 minutes if you just missed the last update for the sea surface temperature information. However, you're only going to wait about 5 minutes for the any kind of storm information. So next we could ask, where does the data come from? Well, we've formed a partnership with PwC. Those are the folks at the Weather Channel, the weather company, who everybody probably knows. They have basically, they work as our agent that compiles information for us. So they pull all the NextRad information from the NOAA and National Weather Service. The sea surface temperature information I mentioned comes from a different source. Lightning information comes from a different source. Basically, they compile all of that data for us, and then we send it to you. So that information, it's sort of a custom marine package that's put together for us by the folks at the weather company. And next, I'd like to talk about our coverage area. unlike GPS, our satellite is not in a typical geosynchronous orbit. It's in what is referred to as a geostationary orbit. That means it is hovering over the equator and is circling at the same speed as the Earth, so it is over North America at all times. The satellites are aimed at North America. What that means is it's giving us very good coverage of North America and nowhere outside this footprint that you see here. So this blue line, that represents our satellite footprint. So we have good coverage in the Gulf. We have it offshore off the mid-Atlantic up to about 200 miles, all throughout the Bahamas. We do not have coverage in the Caribbean or South America. It's not possible. Our satellite is aimed at North America at all times. There's good coverage in the Sea of Cortez. I have spoken with boaters who, when they're rounding Cabo, they'll lose signal for a little bit, but when they get back in the Sea of Cortez, they have service again. So that is right on the edge of the satellite footprint right there. And then we do have coverage all through the Canadian Maritimes and up through the Straits of Juan de la Fuca in the Pacific Northwest Territory. Jeff, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it all. Yep.
All right.
Dan.
Moving on.
Okay, so quite a few questions have come in. I see some back and forth with quite a few of these questions as well. Dan, there was a question about fog and whether we pick up fog. Can you answer that one?
Yeah, no, we can't do that. Which we could. That'd be a good one. I have asked for it before, and we just haven't been able to do that one yet.
We also got a question. A bunch of questions are jumping ahead to the next section of the slides regarding the service and the fees and the coverage, and we will definitely get to those in the next handful of slides. I think it may be useful to go back to the wave and wind slide. This is always a confusing feature for people to understand exactly where the wind is coming from. So Dan, if you would describe, if you would, in a little more detail, the wind barbs and the direction of the wind and exactly how to read this information.
Okay. So the small dot on the end of the barb is a fixed point. If there's nothing but a dot showing on screen, it means the winds are light and variable, so they have no speed to them. The minute the wind picks up, this long shaft will appear, and it will have some smaller hash marks at the end of it. And depending on how many hash marks it has, that's the speed of the wind. So basically right here we have the letter, looks like the letter F laying on its side. That means the wind is coming out of the east. It's coming from the east, and it's headed to the west. That's what that symbol would be telling us. Over here, the wind is at 15 knots. So it's coming out of the east-northeast and moving down towards the west-southwest.
All right. If you could go similarly just quickly through wave, Dan, and show the legend and what that means. Okay.
So the red arrow is the wave direction, and basically that arrow points the direction the waves are going. So these arrows right here means the waves are going from the east to the west. If the boat right here is headed north, so it would be taking the waves on the starboard bow, to give you an example. And the legend, again, over here we have the wave height represented as a color. Basically, dark blue means 1 foot or less. 36 red means 36 footers. You don't want to be there. And then you have your range in between. And then we have the period, as I mentioned, the green line. That's this line that runs along here. These waves are 4-second interval. There's a line over here at 6-second intervals, and a line over here at 5. This other red line we're seeing on screen is our barometric pressure as designated in the legend. So we're looking at 30.3 millibars pressure right here. And again, these are all layers that can be customized. If you wanted to see wind on your sea surface temperature screen, you could have the wind barbs show up on this screen in addition to the temperature. These are all layers that can be adjusted from the menu when you press the menu button on your screen and bring up the menu.
All right. All right, so that was, I know there was several specific questions. Hopefully we covered a few of the specific or general questions rather. And if we're missing something that would be applicable to everybody, please chime in with some more chat as we move through these next series of screenshots and slides. And we will take another few minutes at the very end to answer questions. Oh, by the way, somebody did mention what if I'm not a Garmin subscriber, what if I want information on fishing? And I did mention earlier, some people may not have caught it, but we do have a whole series of webinars. We have 2 more next week covering Raymarine and Simrad, and then we have one in early June. I think it's June 3rd is the date, covering specifically fishing and what you need to know to dial in your SiriusXM weather to help you find fish and look for fish and just assist with your fishing outings. All right.
Okay, there's one more question about Canada I thought I'd address. We do offer information in Canada. If you have the latest version of software installed on your Garmin plotter, it can display the Canadian maritime information. Canada has marine zones just like we have in the U.S., and that information is available on Garmin chart plotters. That hasn't always been the case. There was actually a glitch a little while back, and it went down for a little bit, but it's been corrected. So if you have the most current software, you can get the Canadian, what we call Environment Canada is the name of the company, forecast information. The wind and wave information is also available for Canada, as is the radar information, lightning information. All that information, sea surface temperature, is available for Canada as well as the U.S. SiriusXM Canada also can now, you can subscribe in SiriusXM Canada. There was some problems with that previously that have been corrected. So if you live in Canada and you want to subscribe via SiriusXM Marine Canada, you can now do that. You can get the weather service through your Canadian account. You don't have to have a U.S. billing address anymore in order to subscribe. All right, Jeff, back to you.
Okay, so the current Garmin weather receiver is called the GXM53. There might be some people on the call that have older models of weather receiver, but this is the current available for sale weather receiver. It is compatible with the GPSMAP series. John, did you want to chime in and talk a little bit about this before I talk about the rebate?
Yeah, so I listed the compatible devices there on the right-hand side. So it's really our most current GPSMAP series that the GXM53 can actually work on. Remember, that's running through Ethernet now. Prior versions, the GXM52 and 51, used NEMA 2000. So with the broader bandwidth on the GXM53, we have a lot faster data up rate on there. I did notice that some people were asking earlier about like a 4210 and a 4212. Those cannot use the GXM53. You would have to find somebody selling a used GXM52 in order to utilize that 4210 or 4212.
All right, thank you, John. And I will mention on this slide as well our $100 rebate for those of you who are going out to purchase the GXM53. Even though we don't manufacture the Garmin weather receiver, we, SiriusXM, do offer a $100 rebate. It's pretty simple to sign up. Once you sign up for the service, you simply go to SiriusXM.com/marine rebate, fill in your details with your weather receiver number, and then we send you a $100 gift card. So quite a few people take advantage of these, and there's no reason not to, as it's a fairly straightforward process.
So also, guys, could I chime in real quick on software?
Yes.
Okay, so with the GXM53, and we had some people asking about like a 7612 XSV. The most current version for the 7612 is 15.0. And then on your GXM receivers, both the GXM 52 and 53 is 2.70. Okay? You can go on to Garmin's website and just type in your Garmin chart plotter, and we can show you the most current software, and you can download that to an SD card for free.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on. The next thing we always like to talk about is what made SiriusXM great, and that's our radio service. The Garmin receivers not only can do weather, but they also can act as your SiriusXM radio receiver. You don't necessarily have to have a radio. You could actually put it to just an amp and the speakers, but of course we also think it works very well with the Fusion product. And John, I'll let you talk a little bit about Fusion and how the two tie together.
Yeah, so we're highlighting the Apollo series Fusion head unit, GXM53, and for this example, we have an 8612 XSV. So when we have these all networked together, we have complete control through our Garmin chart plotter. All the menu controls, all that functionality can go right through your Garmin chart plotter. And obviously, if you have both the audio and the weather, you have the capabilities of controlling your Fusion stereo right through that Garmin chart plotter. We do have one unique feature that's pretty neat on the new 8612 series. We can actually tie the audio cable right into the 8600 series. So we've got a new audio cable with RCA jacks that can tie that information all together.
Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit. A lot of you have been asking questions about the price of the service. There are two packages available to work with the Garmin, the Marine Coastal package and the Marine Offshore package. And they sell for $30 a month and $55 a month. That is the price for just the weather portion of the subscription. If you want to add music to that service, it is discounted. You're only going to pay $10.99 a month for the select package. That's the usual price is $15.99, so you're saving $5 there. Or if you want the all access package, it goes from $20 down to $15.99 a month. The all access package gives you some of the channels, the extra channels, like our good friend Mr. Howard Stern, and some of the other sports networks. The all access package also gives you the ability to use your phone and the SiriusXM app and listen to your phone. It's almost like having two subscriptions. One person could be listening on their phone while connected to the internet. The other person could be out on the boat fishing, listening to tunes at the same time. That's the big advantage of all access. Getting back to the packages for just a minute, we do often get asked about the differences between the two, and the name is a little confusing. When we call this the coastal package, that doesn't mean it only works on the coast. All of the weather information in that package works anywhere in the SiriusXM footprint. The only geographic limitation that this package has is sea surface temperature. It stops 24 nautical miles from shore. So if you're running offshore, you're going to want, for fishing, you're going to want the offshore package. The other difference between these two packages are the forecasting information. We feel somebody running close to the coast doesn't need to see very far ahead what the conditions are going to be like. But if you're cruising, you probably do. The Marine Offshore package is the one that takes not only gives you current conditions, but gives you forecasting capability out to 48 hours. So those are the two package that are available.
Okay, next is something we wanted to bring to everybody's attention. If you are not a current SiriusXM Weather user, we do have a current 2-month trial offer. This is a trial on the Coastal package. And we've circled this number down below, or put a square red box around this number below for a very specific reason. And that is, it's disappointing when people call in SiriusXM.com and just look up the general 1-800 number and may have some call center offshore or have a call center that has no idea what SiriusXM Marine Weather is. So just wanted to highlight this specific number, as we do have a dedicated call center for our marine and aviation divisions, and that is the number. There's several numbers that go to that call center, but this is the one that we ask that you call. And simply, if you do want to take advantage of a 2-month trial offer, you would buy your hardware, install it, and then call this number and just reference 2-month marine trial. All right. As far as getting activated, pretty simple. You purchase your compatible hardware and install it. Some people install their hardware themselves. It's not a huge amount of work. It does involve a few holes in your boat to put that antenna, because remember, you have to have the antenna in clear view of satellites. You do not want it obstructed. So that should not be below decks or in an anchor locker or somewhere where it's going to be obstructed. Not to say that the signal couldn't go through some fiberglass, but probably best that it has a clear view of sight to the satellites. Then you choose your subscription package that Dan just reviewed, and then you simply visit SiriusXM.com/Marine Activate, or you call this number, and again, that goes to our marine-specific customer service office.
All right, so here we'll dial in a little bit about getting started. The way SiriusXM communicates with the receiver is through a number called a radio ID number. And when you buy a receiver, that number is going to be on the box that it comes in. It's going to be on the underside of the antenna. But we prefer that you get that number off of the screen on your multifunction display, because if you get it from here, then you know that the receiver is hooked up properly and it's communicating with your MFD. So you can go into the settings menu on the Garmin. Settings, system information, software information is the step that you go through to bring up this radio ID number. And that's when you call us, that's the number that you want to have with you in order for us to set up the subscription. And there are a couple other points we like you to be aware of. When you're installing your unit, always check the signal strength. And your Garmin is going to give you a couple of different signal strength information. I think if we go back one screen, this screenshot was taken, the unit must have been inside of a building because there was no GPS coverage. That's a symbol of a little satellite there. That's your GPS signal strength. So in this case, it wasn't showing up. But it is giving us 2 signal strength meters for the SiriusXM radio portion of the subscription and the SiriusXM weather portion of the subscription. So that's your signal strength. Always a good thing to check. As Jeff mentioned, the antenna basically needs a clear shot of the sky. Another way to check and see if your system is working before you've even subscribed is via the audio channel. Channel 1 is our preview channel. That is always on, always live, always broadcasting. There's going to be someone there saying, call SiriusXM to subscribe. And you can dial into that channel and pick up that information. If that information is showing, then you know the receiver is working. Now, if channel 1 is all you can get and you've already called and subscribed, it could be that your receiver needs a refresh signal. When you buy it right out of the box and install it, it's not working yet. We have to send it a signal to wake it up, as I mentioned. We refer to that as a refresh signal. Now, you can install your unit and call us from home and set up your subscription and your account, and when you go down to the boat the next day and turn it on, it's still not going to work. Again, we have to send it that wake-up call. And the way we do that is via the signal. So we've set it up where it can very easily done. If you're standing in front of the receiver or in front of the Garmin with it turned on, you can call us and subscribe that way. The signal's going to go out right away while we're talking to you. But if something should happen and you miss it, you can go back later and resend it by going to SiriusXM.com/refresh and entering your ID number. That initiates that signal to go out again for 20 minutes. So you have a 20-minute window to get the receiver turned on and warmed up in order to receive that signal. For those of you that suspend your service in the wintertime, you can suspend up to 6 months. And when you do suspend your service, we ask you, when do you want it turned back on? Well, you say, if you would say April 1st, for example, then at 12:59 or, 12:01 a.m. on April the 1st, that signal is going to go out for 20 minutes. You might not be down to the boat at that time. So when you do get back down to the boat, you request a refresh signal. That's how your service gets actually started up again. And we also like to say that anytime your receiver is not working, this is also a good troubleshooting method. To send a signal refresh to the unit, wait about 20 minutes, see if the unit starts working or not. Sometimes they lose their subscription status. There are various reasons why that could happen, and we could go into that into the next webinar series. But right here, we'll just say if your system doesn't work, one of the easiest things to do, doesn't cost anything, just go to SiriusXM.com, or there's an automated phone number there you can call, and when you call the automated phone service, it'll ask you for your phone number associated with your account. And then if it can't utilize that, it'll ask you for the radio ID, and it sends signal that way. So that's the refresh procedure. Jeff, John, did either of you want to chime in on anything?
I think you covered it thoroughly. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think one thing, too, that I just wanted to kind of cover is when you're locating the antenna, make sure that you have everything turned on. For instance, if you're running a radar, make sure that that radar is turned on when you're placing that antenna before you actually mount it, and don't have that on the same horizontal plane as your radar. So those are some things that I kind of see. If you're not getting any of the bars, you can go into your Garmin unit and you go to the settings and communication and marine network just to see if you see the GXM53 appear on the network, because you could have a bad Ethernet cable, Ethernet end. So just check and see that that's actually on the network.
Okay. So, again, we just want to relay our contact information. If you're calling to subscribe, here's the number for our call center, our Marine call center, to subscribe. Or if you want a refresh signal sent, or if you have I'll say a light technical question. But if you have any specific, more detailed questions about your unit, or if you're having an issue or it's behaving strangely, we ask you to reach out to marine.support@SiriusXM.com. And if you want to talk to someone, give them a time when you'd like a return call, and we'll get someone from tech support to call you back and go over any issues you may be having.
All right, so just a reminder, I saw several chats about upcoming webinars, and here is the site. We will not be emailing you, or we may be emailing you future webinars, but here it is. Just jot it down. It's SiriusXM.com/marine webinars, and I suspect the one, just given some of the chat that I've been reading, the one that probably appeals to quite a few people is the June 3rd webinar, Optimizing Your Fishing Experience with SiriusXM Weather. We will have the host of the Florida Insider Fishing Report show on, Captain Rick Murphy, who will join us, and he himself has used SiriusXM Weather quite extensively. So please join us for that. Any other questions here? John or Dan, did you field any other questions, general questions? By the way, thanks all for using the chat feature. I see a lot of back and forth and a lot of SiriusXM Weather experts on here that are answering some questions for some of the folks that maybe didn't know some of the answers. So thanks to all for participating in that, and hopefully this was thorough enough as a 101 course to go through some of the details and fill some people in on some of the things that you may not have known, even if you're a current subscriber. So really appreciate that. John, Dan, anything else to add here before we go to the next slide? Any questions, perhaps?
Anybody that mentioned they were having issues, if a refresh doesn't work, that's when it's time to reach out to marine.support and let them know, and then set up a time, and they can go through some more sophisticated troubleshooting with you on your units. And there are several comments about giving different phone numbers. You're right. We wanted to check and make sure you were paying attention. All those numbers go to our Marine call center. It's just the one on your bill we don't want you to use. That's the one that goes to general, what we call general care, general customer service. These numbers are all good numbers and all go directly to our Marine call center. The difference is they tell us whether you were calling in to ask about a rebate or ask for a refresh. That's the only difference, but they're all good numbers.
Dan, go ahead and back up to that last slide so they can see the contact information again, if you don't mind.
All right. There's one of the phone numbers right there. So that one does go to our call center as all the others.
Yep. And we will send you this information when we follow up. You can all expect to get an email from us in the next week that has a recorded version of this webinar. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will also send you our boattest.com review video. And in the near future, keep your eyes open for our YouTube specific videos. Those are going to be super helpful, especially for people that are current SiriusXM Weather subscribers. It really shows you how to dial in the service in particular. Dan, will you go? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go back to the coverage area one more time. There's still some confusion about the coastal subscription. I mentioned a 24-mile limit. That only applied to sea surface temperature. You can be subscribed to coastal, sitting in the Bahamas, and get all of our weather information other than sea surface temperature in regards to whatever's available in the Bahamas. NEXRAD radar is a little skittish out there because the radar is based out of Miami and it has a 180-mile range, but by the time you're 180 miles out, you're only looking at the very tops of the clouds. And we are looking at possible other radar sites to be able to get data from out there. But even with the coastal package, all your wind information, all your wave information is going to be out there. If you're headed for Bermuda, you're going to get all that information out to Bermuda. Up here in the Pacific Northwest Territory, you can have the coastal package. You're going to get the marine radar up as far as we have the radar information and out as far as the radar is going to reach. So the only limitation on coastal is sea surface temperature and the actual computer model forecasting. That are those wind barbs and those wave arrows. Those are the things that offshore does, that coastal doesn't do, in addition to the sea surface temperature all the way off. Jeff, back to you.
All right. So I think in a nutshell, that is pretty much it. Wanted to say thank you to all for joining us. Really appreciate your attendance. Hopefully we answered your questions. Definitely reach out if you have questions, and in your feedback forms, and we'll send out some kind of webinar feedback in the next week soliciting your feedback. Please let us know if you want a more detailed course. Dan and I and John can certainly put together a level 200 course where we dial it in a little further for people that are closer to the intermediate / getting to the expert level of SiriusXM Weather. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. Stay in touch, and safe boating out there all. Take care.